Picture the man sitting in seat 18C. He's wearing a dark suit, a black tie, a mother of pearl tie pin. He's ordered a bourbon and soda. He looks like every other businessman on a Wednesday afternoon flight from Portland to Seattle. Except he's not going to Seattle. He never was. In his briefcase, there may or may not be a bomb. In his lap, there is $200,000 in untraceable bills. And in about 4 hours, he is going to step out of a door at 10,000 feet into a freezing, pitch black storm and disappear so completely that the FBI will still be looking for him half a century later. This is not a story about a crime. It's a story about what happens when one ordinary-looking man beats every system designed to stop him, and what it says about us that we spent the next 54 years quietly hoping he got away. It started with a name that wasn't even his. On November 24th, 1971, a man purchased a one-way ticket at Portland International Airport under the name Dan Cooper. No ID required, no background check. This was 1971, 2 years before the United States made airport security screening mandatory. You walked up, bought a ticket, and boarded. The man who would become D.B. Cooper understood this perfectly. He had chosen his window carefully. Northwest Orient Flight 305 departed Portland at 2:50 p.m. with 36 passengers and 6 crew. The man in seat 18C waited until the aircraft was airborne. Then he handed flight attendant Florence Schaffner a note. She assumed it was a phone number. She didn't open it. He leaned over quietly and told her she should read it. She did. The note said he had a bomb. What happened next is the part nobody fully prepares you for. He didn't panic. He didn't threaten. He opened his briefcase slightly, enough for Schaffner to see what appeared to be red cylinders, wires, and a battery, then closed it again. He ordered another bourbon. He told Schaffner to sit beside him. He gave her his demands in a voice every crew member described the same way: calm, polite, completely controlled. $200,000 in negotiable bills, 4 parachutes, a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. No tricks. The FBI had 2 hours to respond. Every choice he made suggested preparation, patience, and a clinical understanding of exactly how far the system could be pushed. He asked for 4 parachutes. Not 2, not 1. 4. Investigators would later understand why. If he'd asked for 1, the FBI might have supplied a sabotaged chute. By asking for 4, he implied he might take a hostage. The Bureau couldn't risk it. He got 4 working parachutes. The ransom was paid in $20 bills, 10,000 of them, photographed before handover, every serial number recorded. This was their net. The money was marked. If he spent a single bill anywhere in the country, they would know. He knew this too. He never spent a single bill. The plane landed in Seattle, passengers released, crew remained, fuel loaded. Cooper reviewed the money, appeared satisfied, and gave instructions for the next departure. Los Angeles, flying low, gear down, minimum airspeed. He knew exactly what flight configuration would give him the right jump conditions. He had studied this. At approximately 8:13 p.m., somewhere over the Cascade Mountains, a warning light indicated the rear air stair had opened. A crew member moved toward the back. Cooper told her to stay forward. Nobody saw him jump. Nobody heard him jump. The aircraft landed in Reno, and the rear of the plane was empty. D.B. Cooper was gone. What followed was the longest manhunt the FBI had ever run for a single individual. 40 square miles of Pacific Northwest wilderness searched immediately. Nothing. Over the following decades, more than 1,000 suspects investigated. Dozens of men confessed to being Cooper, some on deathbeds, some seeking attention. Every confession was followed up. Everyone was eliminated. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI suspended active investigation. Not closed, suspended. A closed case has an answer. A suspended case is one the Bureau ran out of resources to chase, but couldn't bring itself to call finished. Somewhere in a federal evidence room, the clip-on tie he left behind still sits in a bag. The cigarette butts are still cataloged. The serial numbers are still in the system. If a single bill surfaces, the case reopens instantly. None ever has. Then came 1980. 8-year-old Brian Ingram was digging in the sandy bank of the Columbia River when his hand pulled out something unexpected. 3 bundles of deteriorating $20 bills. The serial numbers matched perfectly. They were D.B. Cooper's ransom money. $5,800 of the original $200,000, partially buried in a riverbank 9 years after the jump. The FBI ran every test available, and what they found didn't solve the case. It made it stranger. The bills had not washed downstream from the jump zone. The river doesn't flow in that direction. The decay patterns were inconsistent with 9 years of continuous water exposure. They had been somewhere else first, where nobody knows. The remaining $194,200 has never surfaced. Not one bill, not anywhere. So did he survive? The FBI's position for most of the investigation was that he almost certainly did not. A pitch black night. Temperatures near freezing, dense forest below. He jumped in loafers and a suit with a civilian parachute, no helmet, no altimeter, no survival gear. Military freefall experts called the jump suicidal, but those same experts noted something else. This man knew things. He knew the 727's rear air stair could be operated in flight, something most passengers and many airline employees didn't know. He knew the exact flight configuration for a low-speed jump. He knew that $20 bills in that quantity weighed approximately 21 pounds. He demonstrated knowledge that went beyond casual familiarity. The behavioral profile suggested military background, possibly airborne or special operations. A man comfortable under extreme pressure. Not through bravado, but through training. If he survived the jump, he walked out of a wilderness that killed experienced hikers. If he didn't, his body and $194,200 were swallowed by some of the most impenetrable forests in North America. Either way, the system never found him. Here's what never gets discussed. Within weeks of the hijacking, D.B. Cooper was a folk hero, songs written about him, bars named drinks after him. An annual festival ran for decades in the small Washington town nearest the jump zone. People dressed as him, people toasted him. In the middle of a federal manhunt, large portions of America were openly rooting for the man who had done it. Why? He hadn't hurt anyone. The crew was treated with courtesy. The passengers were released unharmed. The money came from a corporation, faceless, untouchable, not from a person anyone could grieve. And he had beaten the system so cleanly, with such apparent ease, that something in the American psyche responded the way it always responds to that specific kind of story. He became a myth because he did what most people have quietly imagined and never will. He looked at the machinery of authority, the airline, the FBI, the federal government, and walked straight through it. Not with violence, not with rage, with a bourbon, a note, and a plan. The system didn't lose because it was weak. It lost because one man understood it better than it understood itself. The tie is still in evidence. The serial numbers are still in federal databases, waiting. Every few years, a new theory, a new suspect, a new confession that falls apart under scrutiny. The internet has generated entire communities dedicated to solving what the FBI could not, mapping jump zones, analyzing bill decay, cross-referencing military records. None of them have found him either, and maybe that's exactly how he wanted it. Because the most unsettling possibility, the one sitting underneath every theory and every search grid, is that D.B. Cooper was not a lucky criminal. He was someone who understood precisely what he was doing, precisely what it would cost, and chose it anyway. A man who looked at the life available to him and decided, on a Wednesday afternoon in November, that he would rather vanish into a storm at 10,000 feet than spend another day inside the ordinary. Whether he lived or died on the other side of that door, nobody ever took that from him. The FBI spent 45 years trying. They couldn't.